Now that I understand that I've been systematically mocked and shunned for the past 22 years and beyond, I don't give a shit what any of you thinks, let alone says. You don't care that your neighbors are paying your deficit and children. Fuck your whole outfit. You don't just declare somebody dead and like wait for it to happen. All right, especially not when you're allies with Turkey, Saudi Arabia. It looks like a colony and it quacks like a colony. Who is calculating our quantitative easing if they cannot figure out how much jet fuel it takes to knock down 3 towers with 2 planes? Obviously, somebody scheduled a flight in from Shanksville, PA. Didn't arrive, but the paper fire. If no one will represent the IRS, choose your weapon. And to the best of my understanding, the IRS represents the people who were here before the Martians showed up, and anybody who has not invested heavily in the Martian stock exchange. I'm not just in it for the Jackson 20. Like, expect some kind of help. Yeah, the currency is backed in all sorts of valuable. We refer to it in gold standard, silver standard. Like the copper penny went intrinsically bankrupt in 1982. Somebody shot the president. Are you old enough to remember this conversation? Then we got the petrodollar. Remember? Could mean a number of things. And then we got vote with your dollars. And then we got vote with your vagina. 20 years into a 30-year war on terror. Why I refer to the Pentagon as the pentagram, as DC, to DC as the District of Columbine. They're not just shooting up our schools, churches, concert theaters, marathons, public gatherings, Nazis, there's zombies. It's not just to ban the Second Amendment. They don't just want our guns. They want your ass. I've been professional, I mean, not just security, but doorman in several high-end venues. That the idea that anyone claimed to be negotiating with me behind closed doors or on my behalf because they couldn't find me is offensive to a rational, law-abiding or not. I now understand that there were misunderstandings. That people presumed I had some reason to give a shit, but the only argument for arguing with a goddamn bird, like September 11th, 2001, somebody shot a plane at my former employer. So I went to see if I could go back to work, and they were like, So, like, I wasn't forgiven. I wasn't in on it. If they thought I was, they either flipped me or shot me. They're afraid of the police. Oh, it's them jump out boys. We them jump out boys. I have mixed feelings about dividing the land into distinct and separate geopolitical, economic, market regions. I don't think that's what's in the best interest of our new owners. I really don't find it funny to take, the first bullshit excuse you get your hands on to, like, weaponize, to attack the planet with a biological weapon backed in child molestation and blame China. These rapists have been following me around at least since at least 1986. And humans don't anthrax virgins. I think we probably get the Vatican backed us up on that. You don't nerve agent poison an Irish virgin and blame Germany because Shinrikyo. Like, it's Turkey. If it weren't for Turkey, we wouldn't have any of this. The Saudi kingdom wouldn't even exist if it weren't for the United Nations. If you were kosher, there might be some argument for a religious. I mean, there might be some religious assertion. As of the copper penny becoming the paper money of coinage, you're not kosher. The fuck do we care what some goddamn wizard from the desert thinks we did? The Irish invented whiskey. All the medicine and bullshit you extort in the world and act like you can just rob us, rape us, and blame us. Like, you wouldn't have it if it weren't for the Catholics. So, do not tell me to shush. Alright? I don't give a shit about the Republic. We have a Republic over here. You see the blood and bones, stars and stripes. It's not a real. It's not a humans on one side and barbarians on the other with a white field of surrender in the middle, or peace. Peace is inherent. If you deliver, it comes with a package. I was actively enlisted, where they get off sending me a jury summons on leave from training. Like, what did we give the government computers for? America Online, stupid at the speed of light. Yeah, no, you're not going to lump me in with the provisional IRA. Sorry, I'm not sympathetic. Greece didn't ban reading. Rome didn't ban reading. The Muslims continue to expand with the help of their Viking wizard and the dress friends. The Catholics cured the bubonic plague. They did that. And I am not worthy. But I know how to restore the land to worthiness. It's not by protest alone. You don't ask, don't tell me right to my face. I'll just say it back. I am not a good Christian. I'm sorry. Christian enough for the likes of you. Roman. Yeah. Dragoons. You're on my field. I'm the least of my brothers. They think it's funny. You know, we have witness. We have forgiveness. We have testimony. We have confession. They have witness only. Allahu Akbar. It's a purge. There is no separation, church and state. You are the state. There are only slaves of the prophet and the infidel to be converted for the glory of Allah. Christians don't convert you to Christian by the sword. It's called a rapier, because we'll show you how you rape around here. The ferryman gets paid. There's no question. Like, who killed me? Rape is defined as not taking no for an answer. I'm not the biggest fan of repeating myself. If you hear me doing that, it's probably because I'm getting raped. 7 years. That was my first awareness. Like, yeah, they've been mocking me. And I didn't even know what to call it. They're just not funny. But there's no telltale heart for the bird to find purchase. Yeah, I figure for litigious purposes, it was me. And I'm not beholden to some stupid, or the foreign one true creator is not on my manifest. Catholic literally means open to all. I mean, as long as you're buying, pick your poison. We got to keep the doors open. You got to think the Bible can't be held accountable for all the common sense the average peasant lacks. There wouldn't be a great library big enough. There would be caravans lined up around the block, new ones arriving daily. So the argument is for Catholicism, not on behalf of or under the direction of, just as a lifelong theological natch, knowing what it means. It is compatible enough with any real religion, not to say true religion. The Bible's the perfect word of God, because if you were born yesterday, you start with that. No matter who you are, where you're from, you can figure out how to be a human being just with one Bible. It was originally a very highly valuable, sought after manuscript. They were manuscripts, even when they were bound in vellum. But if you lack the common sense, initiative, ingenuity, innovation, adaptability of your average primate, we're going to find a free Bible. That's what that means. It's a very competitive thing. You read it before you leave, and then you keep it with you, so that if your nomad has some question of whether you're from this planet, it can be hashed out on the spot. Well, let's look it up. All right, these are my people right here. Oh, okay. Grab a camel. Otherwise, you're waiting for the next one, and God knows when that could arrive. Understand, there's a real world application for this thing. You wish to engage in global trade under our flag. Your chances of survival are vastly improved by some familiarity with the first passport known to man. Yes, the Jews standardized the first international trade passport known to man. They weren't wasting their time. It's not fairy tales or whatever your chosen profession. The Bible is the perfect word of God. It is man who is flawed. It is perfect as it applies to you. Good luck. Have faith. But Buddha works not just with Jesus. Buddha works with Thor. I study religions as a hobby. It brings me pleasure. Christian, the Templar, and not a good one. Sorry, I'm not getting excommunicated by the intergalactic heathen, unwashed zombie asshole apocalypse church at Jonestown. I approach the Eastern Orthodox churches with a just sincere, abiding love in my ecumenical mission. The Russians, I mean, the Muscovites wouldn't have a country if it weren't for the Kievan Rus. But what's the difference? Look at Russian architecture, Russian art, Russian food, Russian women. It's cooler than France. You don't have to hate Russia to be a good German. The majority of Germans hate Rome anyway. Why bother? You start with the Sermon on the Mount, Germans. Maybe get yourself a red letter. Study the words of Christ. And then compare, contrast. Try to understand, seek seek a sincere and try to make it part of you. Your interpretation of the Old Testament, the prophecies he was sent to fulfill. Understand Kings and Samuel, Job and Psalms. Fortify this with your basic public or parochial curriculum. Then make your pilgrimage, perform your mission, and then come back, go to school again, and do the Greeks. Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, the Hippocratic Oath. First, I shall do no harm. Or you ain't the boss. That's all it means. It's not illegal to be a wizard, but this is why we don't have the Russians. They don't abide the heresy. Not illegal to be a peasant. Not illegal to be new in town. You're not the boss. This is my house. First, do no harm. And then do not bring shame upon my house. Do not disgrace your order of sovereignty. Turn the other cheek, and then it can get medical. Religion takes place on the grounds. What does that mean? Well, there's two types of bard. You shall know them by their fruits. The church is protected by virtue of the act never changes. It only happened once ever. The judge, the court is our experiment, but this is likewise. The judge is Thor. The priest, well, Christ, right? So these are bards. Thor is a bard. Solomon, wisest of the judges, bard. That does not speak the words falsely. We do not require litigation for the fulfillment of our parochial schools. The state, first, does no harm or does not represent us anyway, but the existence of religion implies separation, church and the state. Rome did not ban reading. The Greeks did not ban reading. The Jews did not ban reading. Why would Jesus, being a Jew, ban reading? Moses may have been first king of the Jews, David was. He wrote about David. Right. Try not to mess this up too big. Point being, by the time of Exodus, there were already Jews in Judea, the Levant, Palestine, whatever you want to call it. The Holy Land was holy because there were Jews there already. The Philistines are mentioned throughout the Old Testament. In Jeremiah 5:26, we read, "For among my people are found wicked men. They lay wait like he that setteth snares. They set a trap, they catch men." That's a reference to the prehistoric slave raiding customs, which were after the Catholic persecution, the Nicene councils, the second Roman crusade to the Near East. After all that, in the vacuum of power created by the systemic persecution of pastoral ancient Christianity, it necessitated the codification of prehistoric slave raiding, nomadic, feudalistic, Zoroastrian Mithrin philosophy. It's a cult. It's a philosophy. It's a philosophy because they are willing to die for it, preferably you first. It's a cult because they have ritual. They commend the spirit to eternity. They consecrate the soil. So it's Greek because the ferryman gets paid, but it's not a religion because, as of Socrates, religion is a search for universal and eternal truth. It includes science, law, philosophy. The church is very cultish in many things. Worldly objects devoted to eternity. Understand? It's not idolatry. We depict the prophet around here all we want. Our God is no fugitive. It wouldn't matter if he was. He has powers over life and death. He's a real God. But we abide this heresy because the ecclesiastical authority of the church is limited to church policy. They don't assert dominion over the state. So the witch burning and the heresy was tolerated, it was allowed, and it influenced church culture. And people think religion is the problem now because they don't know. Europe was invaded by the Muslim. I know good Vikings. My Vikings are good men. I don't abide racial purity. Okay. The Bible was written 5,000 years ago about them. The earth was not created 5,000 years ago. Some people think Jesus wrote the Bible. Don't come around here acting all brand new with your fancy toy. I had to take it apart, put it back together. I know everything about the technology, the Third Reich. I mean, I debunked the Third Reich. Now the Holocaust, I don't know how many Jews. They say 6 million wasn't. 6 million was impossible. How many Germans? I mean, Russians, Americans. If there's no such thing as a Christian who is not a Judeo-Christian, now how many Jews died? If some Christians interpret a Jew as just a foreigner, now how many Jews died? It's not important. What's important is that the Holocaust happened. We know it happened because it established fluorine microdosing as a potential therapeutic application. It's now the basis, the cornerstone of modern healthcare master race. But it's toxic waste. It happens to suppress certain emotions, which in the context of reality would be abnormal not to exhibit. So in extreme cases, it may be merited. But in a subsidized healthcare insurance economic system, let alone a Keynesian one where we're more broken, first, do no harm, you're not a doctor. IQ testing, or it's not psychology. Someone knocked down 3 towers with 2 planes and called us liars. Whether or not myself in particular, which I could pay a ferryman all the way up, right back to start with that. My Russians are good boys. Okay? Nobody's going around punishing or forgiving good Muslims on my behalf. They came here to flee from the flat earth persecution of their angry, cross-eyed, cannibal, whatever. They'll figure it out eventually. They're not here for our submission. I'm a man of the book. I'm not here to argue with some mullah about who gets to enslave the human race. The attitude that you can steal divine, ecclesiastical, or noble authority is why we have the Krampus. Convert me by the sword. And don't anticipate my conversion to Muslim just because I own a Quran. Right? Love thy enemy as you love yourself. Know thy enemy. I'm not beholden to some plausibly deniable bird got carried away with the idea they could just charge us willy-nilly and then hand me the world on a platter. Like, if I made a deal with the devil, it wasn't after I raised my right hand, and I don't care how you feel about that, because I read the book of Genesis. If there was one Allah and Muhammad is his prophet, why do you craft your depictions of Muhammad in mosaics named for Moses and not mohawks for Muhammad or mohams? Because you're all cops, basically. You're born a cop in Islam. Yeah, no, I never skipped on jury duty like without justification. Why we bothered giving the government computers? They can't be like, oh, he skipped jury duty. Like, if you can penalize the military for forgiving me, you figure out I didn't skip jury duty. But it has to be plausibly deniable. I reverse engineered the United Nations application of technology proprietary to the Central Intelligence Agency, United States Department of State. I did that. Don't treat me like shit my whole life and then act like I'm some kind of big deal and expect me to believe you. Sorry. You're not a church to be acting like I'm wrong. My faith's wrong. You get paid whether it works or not. Religion is a matter of life and death. And government should be taken far more seriously, because if our religion is not respected, we have a duty in this life to eternity. The state exists by our leave. The FBI says MK Ultra is proprietary to the Russians. And I know more than I say, believe it or not. You thought I was a parrot before. I've never been a big mouth. Parrot maybe. But now, I mean, for the past 7 years, I've been equipped to facilitate the amicable resolution and transition to a sustainable, lucrative reform. And instead, some idiot pretended I never left, lied to the news again, built a goddamn wall, gave weapons to the Saudis, moved our embassy to the Temple Mount of Revelation, failed out of a 20-year war in Afghanistan that we were sent to with no armor but a deck of cards instead. Don't tell me that the military traditionally takes decks of cards with our enemies on them. We take decks of cards with bitches on them. It was useful for offending the hell out of the entire Muslim world while we stood around with no tanks getting blown off the side of the road. Freedom of the press is a sacred and inviolable right. Eisenhower warned us about the unwarranted acquisition of power, whether sought or unsought by the military-industrial complex. It became a non-issue in Vietnam. Okay. As of you know who, the news is now entertainment industry, and the price is a human sacrifice racket trying to tell me what to do with a bird. Like, worth more than your whole outfit, because I've hated it from the beginning. Finding out when I'm 35 I might have some say in the matter don't change my position. Imagine joining the losing team. Oh yeah, you won't get paid until you join the deadbeat zombie apocalypse. First, do no harm. You're not a doctor. You're not a statesman. You're not a judge, a cop, a politician. Preserve and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, but we're not in cahoots. The revolution was not just against Britain, all right? Freedom of religion, freedom of speech, assembly, and religion was established, and the press was established because the revolution was against the German Enlightenment that the settlers were fleeing from to begin with, or spreading like some kind of divine mandate. Under a Greco-Roman or Judeo-Christian, a faithful one, system, this would not require reiteration. Rome did not ban reading. The church itself, the existence thereof, is inherently a protest against stupid government. But it is. And that is the consecrated founding document for the noble assembly that I do my best to try to appeal to. If I seek the approval of any statesman, it would consistently have to be the governing body which represents the unity of these states legally by laws older than the Constitution. The governor's office, see, piracy is not a religion. Piracy answers to the governor's office. There's a letter of marque. You got a license to commit piracy, privateering. What the governor represents a city-state. So the governor's association represents the Philistines, milling about in the ashes of Jericho with their highballs, chuckling about some what's it called, insider trading acquisition, some hot tip on a horse. I'm not here to forgive all the sins of the world. I'm here to ensure that the church is aware of what's being forgiven on their behalf, because they're going to take issue with certain things. I don't derive authority from or assert authority over the Jews or the Christians. Well, I mean, I aspire to be the best not kosher, but the best Jew. As a Christian, we all want to be the best Jew. We forget about the shellfish and all that religious dietary restrictions. We're fishermen. We're not desert people. No, I can cook up a tasty matzah. I'm not that kind of Jew. First, do no harm. I'm not that kind of doctor. But you get the first, do no harm, and then invoke the authority of the angels. Do not come back empty-handed. And this is the basis of all civilization. There is such thing as just war. War is not a racket. Peace is a racket. Peace is inherent, and peace, we don't, we might have a cessation of hostilities. We might vote about it, decide we should stop fighting, think we have an answer. There's no declaration of peace. It's called a declaration of victory or surrender. As long as we're not sworn to the Hippocratic Oath, as long as we're not kosher, as long as we're not forgiven, atrocities committed on our soil are a joke to Allah. He thinks it's funny. Black lives matter as much as white lives or Spanish lives or Jewish lives. The democracy owes no sacred right to life. The church is forever. The church ain't going nowhere. I am informally educated but theological expert for the state. I assert no authority over the church. I want to go back to work. I am not beholden to NAFTA. Okay, like it or not, we built a wall. I got Canadians and rapists and wizards. Oh my! If you're not concerned enough about that to be like, hey, have you seen this girl? Not beholden to you either. So patch me through to Washington. I expect some kind of response. I don't answer this goddamn bird worth more than their whole outfit. SEC, FCC, FDA, ATF. I have information which is not subject to a vote. The campaign fund does not dictate my policy. It's an interim regime. I intend to transition it to solvent democracy in the best interest of those on the land. If our human rights are not represented, our trade laws not enforced, there's no argument for blind eye. I am no Christian priest. I never claim to be. We all make mistakes. It's not an opportunity for the campaign fund to sacrifice our flock or marginalize my flock based on my eventual silence. I've already won. Pick a healthcare plan that's right for you. Don't take money from India or contract the services of Gandhi on behalf of Kali, because Kali is Babu, that's his job, and Gandhi was not a Hindu. How you think he set up Pakistan and Bangladesh as a Hindu? No. Here is the source of Ireland's woes. Gandhi was not a Hindu. We were defeated by a Muslim. The Aryans are Greeks. We were led by the Trojans to bring civilization to the Isles. The Gauls were a loose confederation which stretched from possibly the Black Forest, but at least the limit of the Rhine River Valley to the Pyrenees. The Celts, from Spain to Finland. Right, Europeans are Celts for the most part. We're Slavs. Caucasians, Slavs and Celts. Semites, Caucasians. My ancestors hunted mammoth. with domesticated wolves. The Iron Age is named for my people. We are not Ubermensch. Ubermensch is technically, loosely translated from the Germanic to Latin would be Neanderthal. The Steppes people also hunted mammoth, domesticated wolves. The Semites, the Mesopotamians, popularized pottery. They made farming, pottery, animal husbandry. These things we take from the predecessors of the Phoenicians, the Sumerians, the Babylonians, Semites. We wouldn't have cats were it not for them. So look past your differences and understand that Islam is the codification of a prehistoric slave raiding system. The Dark Ages, the misconceptions about religion, which stem from the faithless application of Christianity for purposes of oppression, stem from invasion by a prehistoric slave raiding, feudalistic, nomadic cult. The people of the Levant, of the Bosphorus, the Berbers of North Africa, the Persians, the Afghans, the Kurds suffer for Islam and its ruthless dedication to the micromanagement, the silencing and corruption and toppling of foreign banking systems, the ouster of our currency. And they do that by providing security to our democracies. They say, invest in us and we will guarantee succession. So it's heathen, sacrilegious, heretical form of nobility. It's anti-nobility. You're either a direct descendant of the prophet or his slaves or the infidel. And you're not praying 5 times a day. I don't hear the imam. If there's but one Allah and Muhammad is his prophet, you're a heretic. You're an infidel to Judeo-Christian, classical Hellenic, Greco-Roman, Western civilization. If there's but one Allah and Muhammad is his final prophet, explain Gandhi, explain Mandela. I'm here to explain de Gaulle. Belfast, I am golden. I have no troubles. On behalf of the people of North America, Canada, the United States, I support the border assertion in Rhodesia out of a sense of compassion. Duty as a Christian, whether they're Christian or not. The Zulus eat cow. The Dutch don't require the protection of Gandhi. The Irish don't require the protection of Muhammad. First, do no harm. You ain't never seen crazy. As to Rome, I intend to convert to Catholic upon my wedding. My sons will be born Catholic. Will be born to the Catholic Church. Whether or not they choose to accept the forgiveness of Christ and become Christians is as Christ intended, up to them. But God will see them. In the meantime, I'm not arguing with no bird. We're not worshipers of the Lord of the realm of air. Okay? If he won't do his job, I will. Some heretic is asserting a religious prerogative on American soil, and even the Messiah was only tried for 40 days and nights. So I am no wolf in sheep's clothing. We can either be Christians about it or I'm just a wolf. My astrology is Aries. My ancestry is Aries. My philosophy is Aryan. My biology is of Minos. Reassure the Israelis there will be a faithful sister state on behalf of all the Israelites of the planet. The CDC are liars, so I don't know whose homeland you purport to represent, but as long as they're still lying, you ain't the boss of me. We get our bullshit straight from Washington. Need extra help with that. Thanks. The claim to vengeance for the British is it's questionable because it was France that, I mean, it wasn't my game. I just won. Furthermore, a 3-year-old is incapable of consecrating any assertion to marital rape. So poor 007 may never walk quite right again, but you can't be born that way. No. First, do no harm, and then there's a plot, but like, I won. So vengeance, doing to others. Wasn't my game. Whatever. Play more where that came from, you limey bastard. Point is, we're not married. I'm Scottish. My ancestors emigrated from Ireland. Not my second grade teacher, Mrs. Garrett, he said, we're in a conference, and she says to my mother, I am an Anglophile. And she had all these teeth. I'm not in love with every Irishman who ever walked the face of the earth either. The Britons are Celts. The Angles are Celts. The Saxons have satisfied certain requirements for acknowledgement as humans. All right, they're in the book. The Normans, they'll get it eventually. The Britons, the Angles, you call yourself some kind of Celt. Or, I mean, to say nothing, a Christian, and not support my vendetta, not only on behalf of the Irish, but against the people sabotaging world financial structures with child molestation. That doesn't strike a chord. Even the Vikings probably go to war for that. You know, the Vikings don't like war. They just win wars. The Scottish provide our own protection. So, call me a Norman. Bretons, Parisians, these are probably Trojans. Gauls, not to be confused with Goths. We must have departed from the region now known as Normandy. World civilization of the Isles, we slew giants. Giants means cannibals, slave raiders, terrorists. They were not doctors. If the Normans do not represent the Neanderthals that we usurped, why did they occupy, resettle, and rename Normandy? The Teutoburgs at the Black Forest call themselves Germans. The Normans call themselves French. The Empire of Gaul is divided between Germany and France. Frankfurt, the Frankish stronghold belonging to the family for whom France is named, is actually on the German side. So this is how we honor the God of truth and justice. The soil must be consecrated. Can a Teutoburg not be Catholic? Is it so offensive to their interpretation that their bloodline is better off threatened than mixed? See, the democracy protects human rights. It enforces trade laws. Islam expects the enforcement of its religion, which does not acknowledge human rights. You're either a slave of the prophet or an infidel. So when they come here to the round side of the planet, they cannot. Protection means you don't enact policy over us. See, the Christian philosophy, the way to do it would have been, if Black Lives mattered, we would have all kneeled, and then it would have been over. That would have been it. If something was to come of it, it would have come. We don't drag things out. We don't make a social movement out of every impossible, any kind of conflict, any discrepancy. It can be cultivated, curated, exploited, and milked. It's permanent. They make it. They cause these divisions and corruption, marginalize, isolate, exploit people. If it wasn't for Islam, there'd be no Protestants. If it weren't for the Protestants, there'd be no Islamic State. The Catholic literally means open to all. Our games are here. It's our team. There, it's your team. We compete in the arena. It's already open to all. Come here and act like this has to be ours too, or we're not, our human rights are being violated. Like, if you're from here, it's already yours. It's not a religious assertion. Like, we're going to pass up a gold medal goalie or a forward winger. You refuse to bow to Christian oppression. Good for you. That's fine. That'll work fine. Why is that not good enough? You are not here for our submission. By the tenets of your own faith, we would be heretics to bow to inferior Muslims. If you wish to reconcile our faiths, then you represent the prophet. We have an eternal King of Kings. Must be the same God. Now it's just Semite and Aryan. Now we compete on a level field. The Pope kissed the Quran. I can marry your daughter if that pleases you. She will be a queen, but there's not going to be Muslim games without all the fabulous Muslim prizes you've heard of. Come here, act like your religion is your race, and ours isn't. So we're racists. Feminists. First they wanted the vote. They got the vote. They're still here. Now it's no longer a political assertion. It's now a religious assertion. Now they want absolute equality. All women will be paid the same as men. Promote one woman above her male colleagues, and what happens? The assertion is gone, and yet the movement continues. Absolute equality. It goes on, and now we got guys getting sex change operations, and there's your equals that you demanded. What is the church's final word on the will of God regarding the United Nations? Is it a plot? Is it a scheme? Is it meant to liberate the oppressed? Are they here to abolish the heresy? Is it here to undermine the right arm of Rome, the bulwark of civilization. If they assert religious motivation here, while the government protects the gays, we've had a blind eye from France's direction since de Gaulle. Vietnam, JFK. De Gaulle was not a terrorist. De Gaulle was a prince. If you control our government, why must I choose between Born That Way or the white pride, where, just because you're white doesn't mean I have to defend you. Just because you're not doesn't mean I have to fight you. Catholicism. The mother of my children will be a queen. Be it ever so humble, there's no place like home. And my little brown Irishman will be born Catholic, and the religion of his maternal grandparents should not present a threat to my brethren. The Eastern Roman Empire of Byzantium was a Greek coin empire which called itself Rome. It served as the capital of the empire, while the Vatican served as the ecclesiastical capital of the Catholic Church. Some people didn't like the Orientalism of various constituents. A curved sword is not against our laws. It's not against our faith. But faith is worth dying for, or you're not a philosopher. You're not qualified to assert dominion over one who is. So, over the years, without a second thought by myself, various stipulations had to be satisfied in order to assert the prerogative to conduct these machinations. The reasons they would have to give to impose the Mockingbird. Take their justifiable mistakes from my earliest years and act like child psychology, like they have some authority to keep a record of that, and act like they can predict my behavior as an adult to satisfy what they've been doing my entire life. I am not gay. I have never entertained some curiosity, some question like, what if? What does that do? I showered after our games. 5th grade gym class. You have to take a shower. Everybody else wearing bathing suits. I'm a poor kid. I'm walking around in a wet bathing suit. The guy's standing at the door. Well, we got that sorted out. Send a jury summons when I'm home on leave. Act like I bucked jury duty. All this assertion of qualified immunity is unqualified. The immunity derives from democracy and the enforcement of the Bill of Rights. These are mutual protections. Acting like I failed to satisfy, you incentivized your own deception. It's worth more to you to lie to yourself, and I will not be held accountable. No taxation without representation. I will not abide, because according to my understanding, you should not either. So if the state is not represented, this must be our religion. And now I will not abide. Democracy, historically, owes no sacred right to life, but your campaign fund, your guild, your union, your corporation, your congregation, if it seeks the forgiveness of Rome, there is no secrecy. Okay. If the United Nations wishes to forgive or to fund virgin sacrifice, it's against our Messiah was the final authority on it. We don't do abortions, but first do no harm, or you're not a doctor. You're compelled to intercede in the best interest of the patient. There is a pricing system, for purposes of whether or not it's international trade or domestic health medicine or research or surgical or chemical, etc. It's all on my blog. But if the fetus presents a threat to the life of the patient, her body is not suitable to host carrying the child to term. She could die without dilatation and curettage. The Roman Catholic Church established that the cesarean section is a necessary and bona fide medical practice. Dilatation and curettage is a life-saving procedure. It cannot be banned outright on behalf of the church. See where I'm going with this? The Hippocratic Oath does not prohibit surgical procedures. If it's necessary to save the life of the patient, it's covered under the assertion of a democracy. And a Christian, Judeo-Christian, in a Greco-Roman classical Hellenic system, okay, the assertion of a religion implies the operation of a state. If the state has failed, the religion is no longer in, there's no argument that it's the state's fault. So the abominations, the atrocities, the heresy must be our religion. And this is why the church does not dictate policy over the state. The state is our experiment, exists by our leave. The church, the final authority on the will of Christ, comes from an electoral process conducted by virtue of our competition for the cardinality as Christians. When you say not my pope, what you mean is not my religion. And the reason for that, you have eternity to protest. That's how you wish to live your life. Abortion is not forgiven by the church. But when Caesar commits genocide, it is a spectacle, it is a warning, it is a demonstration of the consequences of questioning the might and authority of Caesar. It's not choose the healthcare plan that's right for you, but it's not conducted in secret. We're not hush-a-sheen. Okay, if it's a business venture, it makes market headlines in Bloomberg. It's not, you're not eliminating the competition so that you can control the extortion racket. If you want to play for our team, if you want to go for the gold, your family knows to chill out. You're not going to come here and say we have to be more Muslim about our footy. I'm not a Protestant. I'm all about it. So if I'm making jokes about couscous and curry and, I understand where these traditions derive from, the necessity thereof. We do the same thing out there. Don't say it's because I'm a racist. If there's any question in your mind as to the nature of my intent, you invite me to supper. Otherwise, you're just invoking state authority as a religion, and that's not a religion. Religion includes science. It includes politics. The state is there because we put it there. It's not. They call us blasphemers and heretics. No. If I broke a law, call the law. If I sinned, don't. If you assert vendetta, okay, my flock includes the 5.1 branches of the U.S. military. We're not fascists. Democracy is not a scam. If we go through the logistical effort of civilizing your country, when we leave, there's police. Please do not circumvent our national diplomatic apparatus at Washington. If you have questions regarding the validity of my religion, I actually wrote the guidelines for the Supreme Court and the IRS. Figure if the new owners are a stayer, those will be policy. These are in the best interest of everyone. Universal and eternal truth. This is kosher. My life, my weaknesses, my flaws, what I do to cope with being crippled with nerve agent or heresy is it's nothing to be proud of. At the same time, you shall know them by their fruits. Okay, come to your house, act like I'm here on behalf of God. If I came to your house, if I'm in your bedroom, uninvited, it's on behalf of Washington. It's already too late. I'm not here to judge your technique. Religion, in order to be protected under a fair democratic system, has to be universal. If I take your belief system and apply it to this group independently, then it has to work for them just as well as it did for you to get here. Act like you were misinformed, and then when corrected, not get back in your goddamn boat. Well, our God is just fine with being completely wrong. That's what you're saying. So, apparently, according to our curriculum when I was a child, and some of the world's finest public schools, the Arabs are responsible for preserving and curating the tradition of the game of chess. We are now losing holy wars on two fronts as of first the war on drugs, but war on crime is already like we have police. That's the holy war. That's our holy war. Now we have foreign holy wars in the form of the war on drugs and the war on terror. We have two foreign holy wars on our soil, which means we're losing the first one, and we're not going to ratify cabinet after cabinet after cabinet dedicated to the promulgation of our deficit and have foreign countries competing for UN population credit against a currency whose intrinsic value is derived from the world's history's biggest welfare queen, the host with the most bankruptcies. Don't act like you can send 5 families after me. I'm the 6th family. I represent the vendetta. On my honor. Don't send 5 lairds after me. If she was a princess, we'd have been married before there was any question of whether or not we did the deed. I'll be taking out lines of credit based on your presumption that you can just wait until I fail and then get your ass kicked and act like you still run for president. I didn't know what it was. I just kicked its ass and went back. Here's this. Act like I never left. A lot of parties have been affected by this. I would like to assert, I wish I had the infrastructural security to confirm or deny the status of my friends and family and loved ones and thank them appropriately for their hospitality, reassert the covenants. If the Jews cannot rely upon a consecrated covenant here on our soil, this is not protected by the God of Abraham. I am not the most kosher Jew you've ever met. I'm not worthy. I thank you for your faithful protection and guidance, hospitality, and compassion. And this atrocity, this abomination, this golem, statesman, I rewrote the Hippocratic Code. I defined religion. I debunked Satanism. I debunked Islam. Protestantism, well, I have to find the source of the corruption and make it holy. As far as debunking it, I mean, there's no law in the Christian faith against hating it. Everybody hates it sometimes. You don't make a religion out of it. You don't have to hate it all the time. Whereas, whether it's Teutonic, which Christ forgave. So, if it's Catholic, we can work with it. If it's a real religion, we'll figure it out. There's no facet of Western diplomacy which the Vatican or its appendages cannot, with preparation and support from the state, facilitate. So please understand that a Christian, there's no Christian who is not a Judeo-Christian. There's no Judeo-Christian who is not a nationalist, whether or not we agree with the policies of the day. And the entire planet hates religion because we abide this heresy. These carpetbaggers, these wizards, the Magi come to town, the Krampus runs for office and wins. So democracy is not blanket immunity for whatever you did to get elected. Regardless of the question of first do no harm or you're not a diplomat. Regardless of whether Geneva is represented on the land. Regardless of whether democracy is a rational authority, therefore wants to be correct, and inherently does not undermine its own assertion. The assertion of states' rights implies statehood. We're not going to rise up. That's what I'm saying. Some states require more federal aid than others. So, when Mother Nature, when there's a disaster, they're forced to exaggerate, embellish, milk it. They need funds. And I think that would not be necessary to prolong human suffering if we would develop the infrastructure. The Native Americans do not need the swamp. They were seasonal. They hid in the swamp because they were chased. They were spared in the swamp. The swamp is a vital part of the ecosystem and a major contributor to our overall climatic, environmental habitat. But for purposes of infrastructure, this would all be worth far more agriculturally And the Indians do not hate Andrew Jackson. The Indians don't have time to mess with me. Like, I never benefited for being a white boy because I'm part Cherokee. What good did being part Cherokee do me or them? When I affiliated, if it was a political question, we'd have been married. I'd have married a Sioux princess when I was 13. I remember her name. So what they're doing is they're making bets, they're writing checks, their ass can't cash, and they're just waiting until they can justify the mistake that they won the bet based on this thing usually works. Why isn't it working? Usually, if somebody knows about it, it's because they were in on it. They're not used to somebody getting pissed off because they sold our international communication training contingent and then try to act like they know what's going on. You don't know what's going on. You definitely don't know what's going on. I gotta look into it. Was it a virus? Well, I mean, in retrospect, nah, not really. It was an excuse. Like, the files were there. Would have been the time to grab it and then act like it was somebody's fault. But you didn't. Instead, the phone, and it was a good phone. You can't get it anymore. And it had the best music collection I've ever MP3 put together. But, you had a blessing for me. You had a grand prize, some reward. It was. I didn't like how you asked, so I smashed it and I threw it in a dumpster. I bought some burners and did it my way. Now here we are, 7 years later, and your religious assertion conceded my victory. Your new communications program penalized itself. So why do you act like we're still playing? Put me through to Washington if you know what's good for you. Don't deceive the Catholic Church and act like I'm not forgiven, because you had to ignore my faithful confession to begin with. Knock down 3 towers of 2 planes, call me a liar. They're stupid, and they expect us to be held to that standard. How? You're never sick enough for world health. IQ testing, or it's not psychology per se. We already had religion. They said originally it was based on Jewish mysticism. I know enough about Kabbalah to tell you that, in fact, is not the case. It's not kosher. First, do no harm. You're not a doctor to be calling anybody crazy. Did a priest call me a Satanist? We can hash that out. Did the government say I committed treason? Because, I mean, none of us like the carpetbaggers. If it weren't for the gerrymandering, we put that to a vote. We'd settle that legally. The filibuster is not racist. That's ridiculous. Okay, if a legislator arranges a filibuster and has the audacity, tenacity, durability, the endurance, the strength of conviction to carry out that filibuster, win or lose, he's going for a record. He's establishing something. He's representing me. Because if I'm repeating myself, it's not because I enjoy it. It's the political equivalent of being raped in front of everybody. You're not going to tell him to shut up, act like you represent me. Because I got rapists following me around since I was 6 years old. I didn't know about it. They're asserting some kind of religious, etc. because I'm descended from a guy on the money, and they didn't like our bicentennial. They disagreed. The people who declared independence and put a foreign monarch on their money disagreed with our assertion of a bicentennial. So we had French Canadian bums, vagrants, telling little kids off at the supermarket. And then we got Nazis. Now we got Nazis. Now you're either born that way or you're a Nazi. If you're white and you're poor in America, the haves were born that way, and the have-nots are either Nazis or born that way. So it's no act of political defiance. We have human rights, or we have divine right. I advise any patriot to find a frame of reference within the government. Find someone you admire, who you can stand behind, whether you understand his policies or not. Find someone who inspires you to support these people in favor of. Right? Presume best intent. People do not raise their right hand, do not put their lives on the line, they do not wager their own lives on our behalf because they hate us. They have to generate revenue. They have to protect us with the assertion. Otherwise, it comes to blows. So find someone who you reckon, if it came to blows, wouldn't back down. We don't have female sorceresses because someone's making a religious assertion in spite of the law. Regardless, I have to know, whose sons these are and how to reconcile if they can't be reasoned with. The priest is required to reconcile, or else I qualified to handle it that way too. But the average peasant is not. There's no such thing as a peasant democracy. There's no such thing as a republic of jackasses. I like Clarence Thomas and Amy Coney Barrett because she's a judge. Right? She's not a feminist. She's a judge. She's sovereign. She's a bard. She's got a squad. We guarantee it. I don't like Harvard, Your Honors. I presume there's some affiliation. The bird-wristed academic old man came at a bad time. So the whole thing about Harvard, well, I know that various celebrities and persons of influence and interest support Harvard, but Skull and Bones represents all this heretical piracy. Piracy is not some endeavor to be undertaken lightly. Right? The governor demands that all pirates be under his sphere of influence. Otherwise, they're a liability to him. A realistic, rational authority. This is his city-state. Either this is his state, like by virtue of the campaign finance industrial complex continued pageantry of the Senate. I presume this is still a united state. Please do not assert states' rights on behalf of our governor, because this is not one of those states. I assert no authority over the Republic of the Great State of Texas, whether or not they like it. But any authority derived from my relationship to Texas is by virtue of we can fight about it because we love each other. I'll kick Texas's ass anytime they need it. That's our philosophy. That's our common ground. Boom. United. Right. So all these various assertions based on what I could eventually be coerced into either silence, not answering to, or some misunderstanding that was advantageous to the campaign fund at the time. Regardless of all that, if it doesn't make sense in a Greek classical perspective, there's no forgiveness forthcoming. Act like I'm responsible for it. If somebody didn't get their ass kicked, the ferryman must be paid. Act like I'm some kind of authority for you to defy, pick and choose, profit from my misfortune while others are in on it and I'm not. And then have your religious assertion bow out. You're fatherless. Have your technological assertion sabotage himself. He punished himself. And now what? Now it's a zombie apocalypse. It's either a Martian homeland or these are all my Muslims. Geneva's not represented on the land, being vastly superior. My F-35 campaign pays for itself. You heard all this. These homos are calling us crazy. I think that since the telephone automation, the teleclerk, the robo-teleclerk, remains relatively unchanged for the past 30 years of school shootings, that we should nationalize the infrastructure. Providers are still free to compete within the locus of control of our central government. Now, anyone circumventing our diplomatic apparatus to unduly influence our police is subject to sanction. What that means is that the taxpayer, being informed, a rational voter will support the nationalization of our phone lines, our power infrastructure, the telephone poles, the wires. The phone company, the electric company remain subsidiary franchises of whoever. The Martians can still own a phone company. They still own a power company. My cell phone still belongs to the Mexicans. But for purposes of whether or not I can report a crime, your liability to the governor, the Senate, the Congress, the White House, the cabinets. First, do no harm, you're not a doctor. This is industrial sabotage. You're going to blame the Mexicans. Well, they may have a Catholic assertion, in which case I support their vendetta. As a Catholic, I'd have sooner died, preferably them first. I owe no allegiance, no fealty to Aryan Nation. Just because they stole our name does not mean they represent our values. They're not going to come here, act like you're the Aryans, rob us, rape us, blame us, hold us as collateral behind our backs, like we owe you something we couldn't settle in lead, eye to eye, when you had the chance. Wait till I leave town, be like, you ran away. You had the chance to say something. This right here, I paid for that. I bought that from you. Okay, we're squared up. I don't owe you nothing. You think a crime has been committed and the police won't help you? You hire a lawyer. You're not allowed. You can't afford it. Somebody will help you. Otherwise, if nobody will help you do it the right way, you're only allowed to do it the wrong way. But I don't think we owe you anything. I too am having a problem with the legal aspect of things, because they act like you have the right to refuse service in our country, and when the new owners deploy the working version, you still will. In the meantime, some kind of religious assertion, well, I am not friendly with the Aryan Nation, so why would I not just presume you're NAMBLA, you're the North American Man-Boy Love Association. international rape religion imposed by the gay mafia via the UN, whether Turkey likes it or not. Aaron, the interpreter of Moses. The Jews escaped from oppression in Babylon, the whore of Babylon. Aryan means we deliver. Silver is purity. You're not going to impose colonial fascism on the Irish because you think you're Irish. Now, what does that Celtic cross mean? Now that we know you had it coming, now, that's not my thing, that's our thing. If you're in my joint, you're drinking. You ain't got to sing. The other mix probably prefer that you did. But this is my thing, it turns out. I have a filial claim, and I represent that for them too. The others with a filial claim. The brand, I'm not stealing that from you. I'm at war with the heathen. So if you have a claim, fly proudly. If someone does not expose the plague of frogs, this is how St. Patrick drove the snakes out of Ireland. This is why one day, every year, everyone is Irish. So there's no excuse for not saying it to my face, because this is an old problem. Opposing the social and cultural damage wrought by the eternal social movement, the feminism, the influence that it has on our girls, thinking that they have to be our equal. They acting like being a stay-at-home mom, work-at-home wife, act like being my queen is some kind of character defect. It derives from Islam's practice of maintaining and fostering division in our people in order to corral us in a particular direction. And not for the Protestant Reformation and the Reich, there would be no need of it. We did not ban reading. We did not invent burning witches at the stake. We don't have female sorceresses, because if it comes to blows, have at thee. I will not be forced to defrock a woman. So, the Catholics, the Inquisition, terrible things were done by the Muslims. It's not against their religion to represent ours. And they will do so until such time as our religious assertion is satisfied, because we don't enact policy. But again, don't pretend it's a religious assertion and half step, because I'm a dragoon. I'm a trained killer, not a violent man. I'm trained to get violent. First, do no harm, and then you never seen crazy, Your Honors. Proudly, on behalf of the Republic, my sword cutteth both ways, all enemies, foreign and domestic. So am I famous amongst the Grateful Dead? They'll never take me alive. If someone see something embarrassing, well, if I hadn't humbled myself, the collections wouldn't have gotten cocky enough to give me something I could work with, because that ain't a fact. And if it's so important, I have to figure out why the United Nations would give a shit. I'm not deadheads. Okay, this is an interim regime. I got family on the money. I'm trying to keep it that way, because there's no reason. Like, Whether or not you believe there's no such thing as a racist general, the commander's job is to keep these people alive, to acquire that objective, to defend that perimeter, to recover that asset. I'll take one honest, knowing glaze over a lot of you. What do I need a bunch of anonymous gay mafia liars for? Don't say, make love, not war. What if I'm good at both? What if I don't want to be a whore? What if I make love because I love deeply, and I make war because I'm good at it? What if you don't have to whore your way out of a war as long as I'm good at it? Silver, gold. Our fiat will be backed in an assertion of, if we don't have it, we'll get it. We'll definitely get it. There's no need for all that whoring. Don't take a dive on my behalf. If I failed, if I lost, it was as a good German on the ground. Am I rambling? Well, I happen to be qualified to speak to the 40 some years of my life span. What I remember from the headlines, what I know about those in the preceding decades, the biographies, the autobiographies that I've read, my expertise in the field of religion, the sociological aspect of that applied to political change. The fact that I'm not an expert in post-Marxist economic systems is just because I don't believe in groupthink. I have a religion. We already have an eternal King of Kings. We don't require some political explanation for treating us like we owe you something, like we owe your heretical, stupid, unreasonable God from your one true foreign creator. Because the one true creator created us too. What do we owe you? Invoice Washington or invoice me? All these questions. If they're questions of policy, they go to Washington. Washington, you need me to do something? I need you to do something. If there's a religious assertion, I mean, don't lie to the Catholics. Expect me to bow to it. I didn't forgive it. Yes, I'm related to a Confederate general. Did he design the battle flag of Alabama? The cross of St. Andrew on the Norman field with the 13 tribes, the oracle, the colonies? No, it's just a general, a damn good one. And if he hadn't been shot on his opening march, we might have avoided war. That might have been the end of it. As to whether or not the slavery would have been abolished, some say the discrepancy was over port tariffs. So logically, if that assertion is acknowledged, that must derive from the fact that the port tariffs were not being satisfied because slavery had already been religiously abolished on an international level. We simply had not enacted the policies to adapt to that fact. The Barbary Corsairs responsible for the white Northern European Christians who were captured to address the payment of the ferryman required for the likewise capture and sale of the Niger people by the Congolese. So what's Nigeria going to do? Run away, right? So Picture a Portuguese sea captain chasing Kunta Kinte through the jungle with a butterfly net. They were captured by their fellow West Africans and sold to an international market, which existed by virtue of the imposition of Islam on Christian fishermen, villagers, for the glory of Allah, for religious assertion. It has to be satisfied in turn. The ferryman must be paid. In a Greek system, we have credit. You don't go bankrupt and then your estate not satisfy the debt incurred. We're not going to leverage one tribe after the next, after the next, after the next. You're not going to be the king of the Jews. Christian system, we get refugees. We lost. We don't cheat at the games. Be a good German. There's no Nazis. There's no bad Germans. There's only good Germans and repentant Germans. Try to be a good boy. If I fail, I usually win anyway. I count coup. I go for the gold. There's no amount of gold in the world that can protect a sucker from himself. So, enacting an economic policy based on the presumption that you could just take a dive before everybody else, I'm not beholden to that. So when the new owners take possession, Jackson will be on the money. I said, we have a national space program. We have a national exploratory space program. And that will remain national for reasons not subject to a vote. So the private space program will have its sphere of influence. The national space program is going to do the damn thing. Our communications infrastructure will be funded and built with public resources. And now Washington has no excuse for not enforcing our trade laws. Now the corporation has no excuse for sabotaging Washington for the right to enforce trade law. Because Washington, the enforcement arm of the federal government, we're all trained killers. We're not to be trifled with. Don't lie to us and act like we owe you money. If it's wrong, we need money to get there, to get it. But once we're there, it gets, we're there to fix it. We're not there to demonstrate our mastery over the land and its people. We're there to fix it. We're there to recover the asset and come home. We're not there. It's not a career move. We go, we do the damn thing, we come home. We want to see our families. Don't send us over there and lie to us, act like we're crazy. You're stupid. That's dumb. You shouldn't do that. Somebody lied to my unit. Don't ask, don't tell. Not subject, like, we don't need your protection. Okay? I'm there for 3 years. Figured if it's worth protecting, we'll protect it. And if it's not, we can't be beholden to it. You don't tell the Marines how to train, let alone how to shower. Some goddamn mujahideen tried our shower point, got his ass kicked, barely made it out alive. Lucky to escape with his life. Turned around and said it's because he was gay. Now the gay mafia, the North American Man-Boy Love Association, and the LGBTQ lobby are like, oh no! Like, well, okay, now we got gays in the military. Now we got gays being blamed for leaking classified information on an international level, spending 15 years in the brig, and the LGBTQ lobby's like, baby killer. They don't do shit. So I got run off on false pretense, not just so the UN could act like I'm crazy, call me a homo behind my back. Well, these idiot sheriffs try to prove it. Like, it ain't us. But so that they could call me a coward, so that they could make decisions on my behalf. I'm a doorman for years. Various high-end, classy, top-shelf venues act like I'm hiding. They can't find me. Witness me take one bribe in my whole life from some guy who the venue does not need trouble with this guy. She's not under 18. There's no ethical obligation. I did what I'm supposed to do. It's not policy, but it was handled. Nobody's coming back later like, did you, etc. You get my drift? So, take a bribe, act like that's how I do, and then act like they can't find me. So they have the right to argue on my behalf because I'm a coward. A rational authority wants to be correct. Scientific authority exists within the framework of religious assertion. The church acknowledges the government. The government acknowledges the church. And the reason a politician can't come sit down in the pew with a flock and commune and shut up like the rest of us doesn't make him a fascist. The Catholics are probably the best cops because community is taken for granted. We do what's in the best interest of the flock. The Jews do it the same way. If somebody not kosher, somebody's being abomination is not going to tell us what to do. It's not going to be a liability to the sanctity of the flock. So do we have to persecute them? Well, we're not paying anybody to do it. It's just not legal. Like, you're not going to make a religious assertion on behalf of someone who cannot be blessed by the God of creation with new life. We're not going to war for it. Okay. So protecting it is technically an act of war against us. The IRS has a level of diplomatic flexibility. There's no reason your marriage wouldn't be officiated, recognized for purposes of taxation by the IRS. We're not going to gather here today to witness the holy union between two dudes. See, lesbians, I mean, it's kind of hard to argue for protecting the rise of Christ, guaranteeing that they will not be exploited, and persecute lesbians. Like, they were betrayed, they were seduced, misled, they were raped, traumatized. Recognize a victim. You're not born that way. Saying we're born that way is just an excuse to rape little kids. Don't act all naive and disappointed with me. All right? This is an interim regime, and I'm sick of it. I do what I want. And what I want is for Washington to do their job, to do that thing they do. I want them to stop acting like there's some conflict of interest with the church, without whom it wouldn't know how to read. It wouldn't have it as a religious assertion. It has to be Greek. It has to make sense in the eyes of God. Now, and the thing about the House of Representatives, and I know they're talking about it, but you got to look at it through the eyes of Jericho. The revolution, the House of Representatives is a blood-drenched revolution to overthrow tyranny by a foreign autocrat. Does the Royal Mounted Canadian, is that a threat to our democracy? Because there's kings on the land here. It's not against the law. Historically, Congress has done their best work in Philadelphia. And geopolitically, from a diplomatic, the perspective of sovereign hegemony, or defensible reassertion. We cannot have some mercenary democracy taking a dive on our behalf, act like we voted for it. Some self-sabotaging patsy army did not overthrow us. It's a matter of life and death. We shouldn't have to vote for it, but it's in the Constitution, and therefore all we have to do is represent that separation. Now, the Senate conducts its business. It's not. And it conducts it to completion. It conducts it like it means it. The House of Representatives is open for business. Wheeling and dealing and conspiring on our behalf. They're authorized to do that. And the Empire State will support that. The Senate will gauge their efficacy by virtue of the success of the House of Representatives. And of course, the House will be, our gauge for the corruption. We'll see their debauchery and their luxury, their extravagance, their waste, and their grandeur. And we'll disapprove. And they'll say, we're the scientific authority around here. We'll say, oh, woe is me, the government is corrupt. But we'll be gauging it off the Tea Party, off the liberation. Well, those of us with eyes to see will know that the industry is represented, that our trade laws are enforced, and the Senate will have the freedom of movement to protect us, to enforce our trade laws, to hire sanctified killers like myself, to come and do the jobs that no one else wants. Sanctified, not consecrated. Decorated as well sanctified. So, what are the odds? What are the odds? And yeah, there is substantiation. I know that there is a quantifiable, a logical, and moral imperative, but it's on my behalf. So don't persecute me because I'm protected by a heretical, stupid, fake democracy. There's a real democracy over there. I know there is. I've seen my civilian, or I should say domestic counterparts. They are not a disappointment. They're not ashamed of me. And my disgrace should be it should be addressed and recovered. I should be exonerated. Whether or not I'm put to work, the exoneration is step one. I want 2 stars. I don't demand it. No, that seems like a reasonable platform to explain the undue, the stupidity over the years. Now, I can argue that they're just being insubordinate because they're not qualified to buck a 2-star. Well, do I want 2 stars off the bat? I think that what I've accomplished warrants, at minimum, a first lieutenant, if not captain. So, starting at waiverable minimum, I'll train up, satisfy the stipulations, complete the doctorate, and all this is secondary to the mission that we must consider the primary importance. So, acknowledge that we are serving as proxy for the Boer Wars, and that they are threatened. They are being extorted, exploited, and we should not be at the mercy of blackmail by the gay mafia or their defiance of our constitutionally protected freedom of the press and other rights, to manicure our democracy. Pretty is not the Senate's job. They will not be compelled to stand up on their hind legs and trot when you say. Democracy is consent of the governed, meaning we guarantee their protections. Men like myself, having done first no harm, are then free to recover the asset, to make it holy. Inside these hallowed walls, men of learning conduct the business of statecraft. Out here, I'm just a doorman. We represent the pointy end of civilization. The schools, churches, concerts, and theaters being shot up for the past 30 years. Those are our flock. That's our culture is under attack. So, Tea Party is our fault? You think it's our fault? You want to have a Tea Party? I'm not going to die for the right to stay wrong. I'm not here to ignore that. So, maybe the Senate's not into that. They're on holiday. Figure, watch your back. You want to have a Tea Party? You need a map? That's my philosophy. It's not Swiss. It's for your benefit that I am here. It's not the highest paying salary in the world. It's just the best armed. You know, as long as the Philistines, as long as the revolution is underfoot. This is not Jericho. This is the Philistines. It's not kosher. It's unholy. But in Philadelphia, they can, the Liberty Bell is there for a reason. They now represent our imminent liberation in the event of our failure to represent human rights and enforce trade law. They're distant enough to conduct whatever kind of industry is in demand at that time. But ye old Washington cannot be beholden to foreign interests, because the government is either our boss or our bitch. We work for them, they work for you. It's not a colony. They're not going to be our boss, somebody else's bitch. You didn't vote for that. We didn't sign up for that. The hippies don't want representation in Washington. They don't want their trade laws enforced. They want some religious assertion where they could just hoard their way out of it. Okay, so the hippies don't have a lobby. They have an Islamic State. So don't worry about the hippies. If they want to get funny, we're not scared. So forensic criminal investigation here and diplomatic protection is a matter of life and death. You cannot ban waterboarding. We cannot be held to that impossible standard, because I do 99% of my work unarmed. You cannot ban waterboarding and not CPR. You cannot ban waterboarding and not suspend powers of arrest. It's simple. Banning, declaring that waterboarding is illegal simply makes this a hot zone, not a sensationalist headline opportunity. Our backers pulled out. Okay, it was the gay mafia. I was unaware of any accusation to respond to. I would have responded. I should have retired or been up for retirement 5 years ago. I should have, regardless, children, at least fifth graders by now. They took away any reason that I should not ramble, that I should not speak. I will not be hushed. Was I humiliated? Not to my face. Was the law defied in order to make that assertion? Was there a religious assertion to defy the law under protection? Other than being some nameless, fatherless, landless, unwashed slave of Allah? Right, so these are all my Muslims anyway. If I am in the process of trying to facilitate the amicable resolution of unqualified hostilities with the Crown of England. You did not force his abdication by virtue of your convenient, opportunistic, gullible misinterpretation of what I'm trying to do. So to the area of Dublin and Belfast, the Bobbies, the 007s, are fatherless because the Nazis over here are tentatively homeless. The Church of England, the Archbishop, the Parliament. Understand, I was this Central Intelligence Agency's excuse for funding Justin Trudeau the way they did. And my rejection of what I understood to be a biological weapon backed in child molestation does not equal doubloons and ingots in your hands. It equals an imperative, a religious imperative. That's why I did it. First off, so that they would be compelled to act on the behalf of these idiot peasants from a moral standpoint. Second off, so he could afford protection, so I don't accidentally kill him. I assert the right, the prerogative. I am compelled for the sake of the flock and our democracy to resolve any assertion of conflict, because the British have suffered enough, the Irish have suffered enough, the French should have been fine. De Gaulle, going back to De Gaulle, they've suffered enough. We have these media apparati making a mockery of our freedom of the press. We have traitor publishers here. The foreign publishers, take them or leave them. You can't ban them. If I want to watch RT, don't act like it's against the law. I mean, you are monetizing our celebrities to the point of a human sacrifice racket for the insane wizards, because they're not doctors, subsidizing capitalist mental health pills made of Luftwaffe toxic waste, calling us liars, calling us crazy, calling us homos. I'm mortified. I'm pissed. I'm not Protestant. That assertion fled the field. There's no longer a Protestant church here at war with us. They are either victorious or defeated. That's a religious assertion. It's no longer an excuse. Now, Entertainment Tonight, Inside Edition, TMZ. Any scandal rag out there acting like a legit outfit, monetizing these people's discomfort, turning, these are human beings, celebrity or not. The people don't, they love celebrity. They don't want to see anything bad happen to them, and that is not crazy. You're not going to turn the thing upside down. You're not going to unite the churches and act like anybody who objects is uniting the church. And if on a round planet, there's no danger of uniting the churches. It's only in flat earth. I have regular people being called all manner of evil because the deficit says that something must have happened. So, you have to figure it out. And these idiots are complacent, complicit, content to simply say, well, it must have been this, and liquidate somebody's family, a competitor from the book of life with no say in the matter, no taxation without representation. You come kill me in my face, Muhammad. You want to make a headline out of somebody? I have reason to suspect. If that's not the case, I apologize. In the meantime, it just works. It makes too much sense for me to be satisfied that the insurance company is representing their own bottom line. But the religious assertion belongs in South Africa. Do not make that man come here just to die for this crack market. You don't want to do that. I presume his presence here is against his will, because it's definitely against his best interest. He needs to be in South Africa. Give us a reason to go there. That would be the political and religious thing to do. Otherwise, in the meantime, American sovereignty worthiness has to be demonstrated in order to bring the Catholics into accordance. We have to allay any concern that supporting us is not in accordance with their reason for their cohesion. And in order to do that, if the United Nations wants to do business here, their relief, any grants funding the performance of abortion on those who suffer from poverty, the actual abortion, whether the voided life, because some religions don't acknowledge life until the first breath. The baby might be stillborn, and then right. So the patients who undergo the procedure, their privacy is limited. The physician conducting the procedure protects their confidentiality from the police and the community. They don't need to be ostracized or anything. But there has to be a record in order for the church to maintain an account of what bloodlines are threatened, what flock must be made whole. And a Roman knows democracy asserts no sacred right to life. There's a rational reason that we don't defy human rights, because these are mutual protections. I can't field all that blowback. But we're now in a situation where terrible injustices have been done to the Catholics, to the military, and beyond that, to the Irish. Otherwise, if you're Irish and you're doing terrible things to the Catholics of Spain, I can't back you, bro. But these rapists, it's like they don't take no for an answer. You feel me? We're not the colonial fascists. Any lily white Muslim can come over here calling himself a Mick and act stupid. I ain't paying for that. Don't come here to liberate our land if you're not willing to fight for it. Don't act like it's a free ride so you come over here and justify its liberation. Don't come over here to be a problem. We already have enough hair farming communist hippies trying to screw their way out of it, screw us for the right to do it. Well, as long as that's not a factor, we don't care. It doesn't affect us. The Grateful Dead is not a lobby. We're not affiliated. I'm not going to try it. I'm not going to ignore the unnecessary sacrifices, this mockery of justice and religion, this defiance of, if it wasn't for us, you couldn't live in the stupid comic fantasy world you do. You'll be speaking Chinese if it weren't for us. So don't disrespect us and defy us, sabotage us, act like it's our fault when something goes wrong. Why should we support your trade laws? Free love. The Whore of Babylon. The bearded lady.
Oh, not in the face. Here, how about this?
Yeah, no. We're not born that way. No human was born that way. God did not create you that way. You're either the victim of something that deserves protection by virtue of not bowing to the Christian oppression. And for that, you have Washington. I'm going to bow to our oppression. We don't have a whole lot to gain by persecuting, coming there. Like, it's a problem for us here. Not a problem for us. But we're not paying for its protection, and therefore we're not paying for its. Like, you're not paying us for that. Like we have to bow you, or like we're a threat. As far as we're concerned, you don't exist. Sorry. Stay out of our bedrooms. Yeah, I get behind that. The constitutional right to privacy is probable cause for investigation. Stay out of our bedrooms. It's not gay to protect the Constitution. Washington. We're not paying for that. We don't provide that service. The Bill of Rights, the will of the people is consecrated. These mutual protections are enumerated in the Bill of Rights. If these are not represented on the land, you have not only the prerogative, the legal responsibility, but the ethical compulsion to act until such time as these mutual protections are represented. So I think we should nationalize the infrastructure. It's 30 years old, and those 30 years are marked by sensationalist headlines and media competition for a market which is slanted in favor of a badge with its own media company and bank and casino. It's like bigger than God. So that has to be made holy. Act like the assertion of a militia has the right to defy religious customs, crusade era law, but the government in a transitory interim phase can't broadcast a public announcement, or it's not an imperial decree. It's illegal. See something, say something. We don't need an atrocity, a spectacle. We don't need it. Your campaign fund, if it becomes a threat, what's the argument against nationalization? Freedom of the press is being violated and defied by a union in spite of the political union. It's a different political union. I don't want it to go down the way I know it's supposed to, but I'm not. I don't want to sabotage it either, because it might need to. I just want what's mutually amicably best for everybody, and that is for the gay mafia not to win. Take the FCC and wield it like the weapon it was intended to be. Once infrastructural viability is established, hegemony will be reasserted with a demonstration of worthiness. And I know how to do that, how to sustain it, how to win and keep it, and be the envy of our allies, to be the iron fist beneath the velvet glove of Western civilization, be the right arm of Rome. Be worthy.